"Shut up, you worthless ghetto trash." The words sliced through the marble air of the Grand View Hotel lobby an instant before Richard Whitmore's hand did. The impact echoed, a sharp, humiliating crack that silenced the chatter of 50 guests and shattered the calm elegance of the five-star space. Dr. Maya Johnson stumbled backward as the blow split her cheek open, blood tracing a red path down to her cardigan. Whitmore wasn't finished. With a disgusted sneer, he tore the worn purse from her shoulder and flipped it upside down. Her belongings scattered across the polished marble floor. Wallet, keys, reading glasses tumbling like discarded fragments of a life he thought beneath him. He lifted one of his $3,000 Italian shoes and ground her glasses under his heel until they splintered into glittering dust. "Look at this cheap garbage," he spat, kicking her scattered things. "You don't belong here with civilized people. Go back to whatever section 8 hole you crawled out of." The guests froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. The faint trickle of water from the fountain became the only sound. Someone gasped softly. A teenager by the fountain hesitated for only a heartbeat before raising her phone. The lens began recording. Dr. Maya Johnson, 72 inches of quiet dignity and intellect, knelt on the cold marble, blood dripping from her cheek as she gathered her broken belongings with trembling fingers. Her simple cardigan, gray, clean, unremarkable, was now streaked with red. Whitmore loomed above her, his voice booming through the silence, rich with the arrogance of entitlement. "This isn't some welfare motel," he sneered. "This is the Grand View. Look at you, second-hand clothes, plastic watch. Probably can't even afford valet parking." Maya's hand brushed the twisted frame of her crushed glasses. The lenses were shards. She looked up at him through blurred vision, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, I was just waiting for..." "For what?" He interrupted with a mocking laugh. "Your cleaning shift to start." Across the lobby, 17-year-old Emma Rodriguez stood frozen. She'd been filming a TikTok by the fountain moments earlier. Now her hands shook as she switched to Instagram Live. "Oh my God, guys, racist attack happening right now at the Grand View Hotel," she whispered. The viewer count began to climb. 47, 134, 298. Behind the concierge desk, Patricia Carter, the afternoon manager, felt her stomach twist. In 12 years of hospitality, she had seen arguments and drunken rants, but never this. Never open violence. She recognized the aggressor instantly. Richard Whitmore, VIP guest, business magnate, top-tier client. "Mr. Whitmore," she said carefully, her professional tone steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Perhaps we could." Perfect timing, Patricia. Whitmore turned to her with a slick smile that barely hid his contempt. "Please remove this woman immediately. She's disturbing other guests and clearly doesn't understand appropriate hotel etiquette." Patricia hesitated, her eyes flicking to the woman on the floor. Something didn't fit. The cardigan might be simple, but it was finely made. Her jeans pressed and neat. There was a quiet precision in the woman's movements, even as she pressed a tissue to her bleeding face. "Sir," Patricia began again, "perhaps we should understand what happened," Whitmore barked, "is that this person bumped into me, showed zero respect, and when I tried to correct her behavior, she became belligerent." Emma's live stream viewer count passed 800. Comments poured in. "Call the police. Get his name. This is disgusting." Maya rose slowly, her composure unshaken even as the tissue in her hand bloomed crimson. From the scattered pile, she retrieved a platinum card and a folded boarding pass. The card caught the light beneath the crystal chandeliers, sleek, weighty, unmistakably elite. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said softly. "I was simply waiting in the lobby when... Whitmore interrupted with another bitter laugh. "People like you don't wait in places like this. You work here, or you leave." "People like me?" Maya repeated, her voice even but her eyes steady now. "Don't play dumb," he snapped. "This is a 5-star establishment. Our guests expect certain standards." Patricia's heart pounded. She could feel every eye in the lobby on her. Even the fountain seemed to hold its breath. Security arrived. Chief Rodriguez and 2 guards, their expressions tight with unease. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said formally, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." "On what grounds?" Maya asked, still pressing the tissue to her cheek. "Disturbing other guests." Emma's phone buzzed with a flood of notifications. Her live stream had hit 3,200 viewers. The comments flashed by too fast to read. Hashtag Grandview Racism was beginning to trend. "Look what you've caused," Whitmore hissed, gesturing toward the gathering crowd. "Security, please escort her out immediately. I have a board meeting in," he checked his Patek Philippe watch, 10 minutes. "I can't be late because of this disruption." Patricia pulled up the incident log on her tablet, her hands slick with nervous sweat. With so many witnesses and cameras, every word mattered. "Sir, perhaps we should." "Patricia," Whitmore's voice turned sharp, icy. "I spend over $200,000 a year at Grandview Properties. She probably can't afford a coffee in your lobby cafe. Who exactly do you think the corporation wants you to prioritize?" Maya, still calm, finished collecting her things. The platinum card slipped briefly into view as she tucked it into her pocket. The boarding pass in her other hand revealed her destination, Geneva. "First class." "I understand your position," she said gently to Patricia. Her tone was professional, composed, the tone of someone used to being listened to. "But I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding about who belongs here." "There's no misunderstanding," Whitmore snapped. "You people need to learn your place in society. There are appropriate venues for your demographic." The air turned electric. Security formed a loose circle around Maya. 3 guards, 1 manager, 50 onlookers, and now thousands watching online. Emma whispered into her phone, "They're really about to arrest a bleeding woman for existing while black." The comments section exploded. Someone call the news. "Where are the police? Grandview should be ashamed." Maya looked slowly around the circle, at the guards, at Patricia, at Whitmore. Then she spoke, her tone steady as stone. "Before you escort me anywhere, I suggest you call your general manager." Rodriguez frowned. "Ma'am, he's in meetings all afternoon." "Then call Marcus Johnson," Maya said. At that name, everything shifted. Security guard James stiffened. Patricia's eyes widened, color draining from her face. "Johnson," she whispered. "As in, Johnson?" Maya smiled faintly through the blood and pain. "Yes, Patricia, that Johnson." The lobby fell utterly silent, broken only by the gentle trickle of the fountain. Rodriguez's hand fell away from his radio. James looked at Maya, as if seeing her for the first time. "Johnson," he murmured. "As in the owner?" Patricia's tablet slipped from her trembling fingers and hit the marble with a loud, echoing crack. Whitmore rolled his eyes. "I don't care if she's related to the night janitor. Get her out of here now." Emma's stream was exploding. 8,547 viewers, 12,893, 16,245. Comments flooded in. "Did she just say Johnson? Isn't that the owner's name? Oh my God, she's the boss. He's so screwed." Maya didn't need to say another word. She stood quietly, blood still trickling down her face, while realization rippled outward through the staff like a shockwave. Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Ma'am, could you clarify what you mean by—" "I mean," Maya said evenly, "that before you lay another hand on me, you might want to verify exactly who you're about to assault." Whitmore checked his watch, impatient. "This is ridiculous. I have the Meridian acquisition closing in 8 minutes. Patricia, either handle this or I'll call corporate myself." Patricia could barely think. The Johnson family owned not just this hotel, but the entire Grandview chain. 47 properties, 3 countries. Her tablet buzzed with an emergency corporate alert. Asterisk incident trending online. Hashtag Grandview Racism. Legal demanding immediate report. Asterisk. The elevator chimed softly. 3 more guards emerged, murmuring about calls from the executive floor, demanding updates on the lobby situation. Whitmore's phone rang. He answered brusquely. "Yes. What now?" His assistant's voice was frantic. "Richard, the Meridian board moved the meeting up 15 minutes. They're waiting upstairs." "I'm dealing with a situation," Whitmore snapped. "Some vagrant is causing problems and this incompetent staff won't handle it. Emma caught every word. He just called her a vagrant while she's bleeding from where he hit her, she said to her phone. The viewer count surged past 19,000. At a nearby table, a young journalist named Sarah Martinez had arrived. She began typing furiously on her laptop. Asterisk breaking. Racial attack at luxury Grandview Hotel caught on livestream. White businessman assaults black woman, demands her removal. Asterisk within minutes. Her tweet was viral. Mr. Whitmore, Patricia began cautiously, perhaps we should. Do you know who I am? Whitmore thundered. Whitmore Industries has contracts with half the companies in this city. One phone call from me, and your occupancy rates dropped 20%. Patricia's phone rang again, this time from corporate legal. Patricia, this is HQ. We're watching the live stream. We need immediate escalation protocols. Is that woman really claiming to be? I'll call you back, Patricia whispered, her throat dry. In the center of it all, Maya stood silent. Blood stained her cardigan, but her back was straight, her gaze unwavering. On the mezzanine above, more guests leaned over the railing, whispering. An elderly woman turned to the concierge. Isn't that Dr. Johnson? From a medical conference? She was in the Times last month. The concierge's mouth fell open. I think you're right. Emma's viewership passed 20,000. Guys, she whispered into her phone, trembling with adrenaline, I think she's actually the owner's wife. He just slapped the boss lady. On Maya's phone, notifications flickered. Missed calls from Marcus. Then another. And another. Ma'am, Rodriguez tried again. We really need you to touch me, Maya interrupted quietly, and find out exactly how much legal trouble this hotel can handle in one afternoon. Something in her tone froze everyone in place. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Assistant manager David rushed in from the business center, breathless. Patricia, corporate, is on line 1. They say there's a crisis management situation developing. He stopped mid-sentence, staring at the scene before him. The blood. The circle of guards. Whitmore, standing like a tyrant unmasked. What the hell is happening here? He demanded. This gentleman, Maya said calmly, gesturing to Whitmore, believes he has the authority to assault guests and order their removal based on his personal prejudices. Personal prejudices? Whitmore barked. I'm trying to maintain standards in this establishment. Look at her. She clearly doesn't belong here. David studied Maya more carefully. Her cardigan was modest, but the fabric fine. Her jeans were designer. And there was something about her, familiar, commanding. Ma'am, he asked hesitantly, have we met before? Before Maya could answer, her phone buzzed with a new text. Asterisk saw the live stream. On my way down. Marcus, asterisk. She smiled for the first time since the slap. Whitmore caught the expression. Something funny? Yes, Maya said softly. You think assaulting hotel guests is amusing? She turned slowly, taking in the faces around her, the staff, the guards, the crowd, and the countless eyes behind phones recording every heartbeat of the moment. Let's talk about assault, she said. You slapped me. You destroyed my property. You used racial slurs, all captured on multiple cameras and broadcast to, she glanced at Emma's phone, 21,000 people and counting. Across the room, Sarah Martinez's laptop pinged as her tweet exploded. Hashtag Grandview Racism was now trending across social media platforms. Whitmore tried to protest, but his voice faltered. Now listen here. No, Maya interrupted. Her voice, still quiet, now carried the gravity of command. You listen. The crowd stilled. You've made 3 critical errors today, Mr. Whitmore. She raised one finger. First, you assumed you knew who I was based on my appearance. A second finger. Second, you assumed this staff would prioritize your comfort over basic human decency. A third finger. And third, and most importantly, you assumed you had more power in this situation than I do. At that exact moment, the elevator bell chimed. A soft ding that felt like a drum roll. Maya's eyes flicked toward the sound. Her smile deepened. You're about to learn, she said, how wrong you were about all 3. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a tall, commanding black man in a charcoal gray suit. Every conversation in the Grandview lobby died instantly. The air itself seemed to contract as the man stepped forward, measured, precise, deliberate. His gaze swept across the room, taking in everything at once. His wife's bleeding cheek, the broken glasses on the floor, the tight ring of security guards, and the arrogant businessman still standing at the center of it all. Whitmore turned, annoyed by the interruption. "Who the hell is that?" he muttered. Maya's eyes never left her husband's. Her voice was steady now, every word wrapped in quiet satisfaction. "That," she said softly, "is my husband, Marcus Johnson, CEO of Grandview Holdings, owner of 47 properties, and architect of a $2.3 billion hotel empire." Walked through the crowd without haste. His very presence drew respect like gravity. Even those who didn't know his name recognized power when they felt it. "Maya," he said gently, his voice calm but heavy with concern. "Are you all right?" She touched her cheek, smearing the blood with a tissue. "I'm fine, Marcus, but we need to have a conversation about how your staff handles guests." The guards, who moments earlier had circled her like a threat, now looked at each other, unsure whether to salute or vanish. Patricia, still pale, straightened instinctively at his approach. Whitmore blinked rapidly, confusion flickering across his face. He had expected reinforcements. What he got was authority incarnate. Marcus's eyes shifted to the trembling manager. "Patricia," he said evenly, "Rodriguez, James, conference room." Now, the three jumped at their names, nodding quickly. But before anyone moved, Marcus turned his gaze toward Whitmore, whose bravado was crumbling by the second. "And Mr. Whitmore," he added, his voice smooth as glass, "I believe you and I need to discuss your definition of appropriate behavior in my hotels." The words hit like thunder. The guests exchanged glances. Emma, still live-streaming, whispered to her phone, "Oh my God, she's married to the owner of the entire hotel chain. He just slapped the boss's wife." The chat exploded. Asterisk, he's done. He's finished. This is insane. Asterisk. Whitmore tried to laugh, a brittle sound that broke halfway out of his throat. "Listen, whoever you are, this woman has been disrupting my business meeting. I need her removed immediately." Marcus's gaze didn't waver. "Your business meeting?" "Yes," Whitmore said quickly, clinging to his crumbling composure. "The Meridian acquisition. I'm Richard Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Industries, and I don't have time for her." "Mr. Whitmore," Marcus interrupted softly, "step away from my wife." The silence that followed was total. Even the fountain seemed to stop midstream. Emma's live viewers flooded the comments. Asterisk, he said, "Wife." "Oh no, oh no, he's so done." Asterisk. Whitmore blinked, his lips parting. "You're what?" But Maya wasn't done revealing the truth. Calmly, she stepped away from Marcus and walked to the concierge desk. The crowd parted before her like water before a ship. The concierge, Maria, a woman who had worked at Grandview for years, recognized her instantly and froze. "Mrs. Johnson," Maria stammered. "Are you all right? Should I call a doctor?" "I'm fine," Maya replied gently. "Please activate the executive override for Suite 3000. Maria's hands trembled as she swiped Maya's platinum card through the terminal. A soft chime rang. The screen glowed green. Executive override activated. "Welcome, Mrs. Johnson, board chairwoman." Asterisk, asterisk. The words appeared on the massive lobby display for everyone to see. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Patricia went white as bone. She knew what that meant. Only 3 people in the world had that level of access: the CEO, the board chair, and the majority shareholder. And the bleeding woman before them was all 3 in one. Rodriguez stepped backward, as if from a ledge. James, the guard, removed his hand from his radio. David, the assistant manager, just stared, his face frozen between awe and horror. "Mrs. Johnson," he whispered, "I'm exactly who I've always been," Maya said calmly. "The question is why your staff assumed otherwise." Whitmore was still trying to catch up. "Johnson? Wait, you're saying you're married to some hotel employee?" Marcus's jaw tightened, but before he could answer, Patricia spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Sir, This is Dr. Maya Johnson. She's the chairman of the board of Grand View Holdings. The silence stretched for 10 long seconds, thick and absolute. Emma's viewer count jumped past 32,000. The chairman of the board, she breathed into her phone. He didn't just slap the owner's wife. He slapped the boss of the owner. Whitmore's mouth opened, then closed again, his color draining until he looked almost ghostly. "No," he muttered. "No, that's impossible. Look at her. She's dressed like..." "Like what, Mr. Whitmore?" Maya's voice cut through the room, soft but sharp enough to draw blood. "Like someone who doesn't belong in your world." No one dared speak. Marcus's phone buzzed in his hand. He answered on speaker, his deep voice carrying across the lobby, even as he looked straight at Whitmore. "Maya, baby, I saw the whole thing on the live stream," he said, even though he was standing only feet away. "Are you hurt badly?" "I'm fine, Marcus," she replied. "But we need to discuss security protocols and staff training." "Already in progress," Marcus said. "Patricia. Rodriguez. My office. 5 minutes." "Yes, sir," they stammered in unison. Whitmore found his voice at last, though it cracked like thin ice. There's been a misunderstanding. I didn't realize." "You didn't realize what?" Maya asked, stepping closer. "That black women can own businesses? That we can afford luxury hotels? That we deserve basic human respect?" Around the lobby, cameras captured every word. Sarah Martinez typed furiously from her corner. "Breaking. Federal discrimination consultant assaulted at luxury hotel." The tweet would go viral within minutes. Whitmore lifted trembling hands. I apologize if there was any confusion." "Confusion," Marcus said slowly, stepping toward him. "You slapped my wife. You destroyed her property. You called her racial slurs. On camera. In front of witnesses." Whitmore began, but Maya raised a hand, stopping him cold. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, her tone precise, "you mentioned the Meridian acquisition earlier, didn't you?" "Yes," he said eagerly, desperate to redirect. "It's a critical deal for my company." "The one scheduled for Conference Room B on the 47th floor?" He nodded quickly. "Exactly." Maya smiled faintly, the kind of smile that signaled the storm was just beginning. "Then I should mention that I'm the lead consultant on that deal. The Johnson Foundation holds the deciding vote on the acquisition approval." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then the reality hit him like a freight train. His face went slack, his confidence collapsing into disbelief. "You're what?" "The medical research component of the Meridian deal," she explained. "That's my specialty. The board requested my final assessment before proceeding." Emma whispered to her audience. "She's not just the hotel owner. She's literally the person deciding whether his company survives." "In fact," Maya continued, glancing at her phone, "you're about 5 minutes late for our meeting." She held up her calendar for him to see. 3:00 p.m. Meridian Acquisition Review. Richard Whitmore, CEO. Whitmore stared at the screen as though it were written in another language. The crowd murmured, the weight of realization settling like Judgment Day. "So let me understand this," Maya said, her tone cool and surgical. "You assaulted the person who determines whether your company's most important deal gets approved, in my hotel, on live stream, in front of 35,000 witnesses." The room spun for him. The color drained from his face. He looked ready to faint. Marcus folded his arms. "Maya," he said quietly, "I think Mr. Whitmore needs to sit down." "No," she replied, her voice unshakable. "Mr. Whitmore needs to understand exactly what he's done and what's going to happen next." She turned to face the cameras, her presence filling the lobby. The crowd of guests, staff, and onlookers went silent. The phones lifted higher. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said clearly, "this is Dr. Maya Johnson, chairman of Grand View Holdings. What you've witnessed today is unacceptable, not just in our hotels, not just in the city, but in our society." Emma's viewer count crossed 40,000. Comments scrolled so fast they blurred. "Justice is coming. Get him, Maya. This is history." Maya turned back to Whitmore. "You told me I needed to know my place, Mr. Whitmore," she said softly. "Let me show you what that place actually is." She walked to the concierge counter, opened her laptop, and set it on the marble surface. The screen projected onto the massive lobby display, filling it with light. "Let's discuss numbers," she said evenly, "since you seem to value them so much more than people." The first slide appeared. Grandview Holdings, annual revenue, $2.347 billion. Whitmore blinked, try to comprehend the magnitude. "Your annual spending across our properties totals $347,000. Maya continued, clicking to the next slide. "That represents exactly 0.0148% of our total revenue." The audience reacted audibly. Emma's viewers lit up the chat. "She's destroying him with math." "To put that in perspective," Maya added, "we make your entire annual spending in approximately 6 hours." Patricia's hands trembled as she watched. She realized this wasn't just a personal reckoning. It was a corporate earthquake. Marcus stepped beside his wife, his expression calm but unyielding. "Maya, show him the guest policy." She nodded, pulling up the official Grand View Code of Conduct. She read aloud, her voice clear as glass. Section 12.3. Discrimination, harassment, or assault against any person on Grandview properties results in immediate banishment from all facilities and potential legal action. Section 12.4. Violations involving racial bias carry additional penalties, including contract termination for corporate clients. The policy filled the display screen in bold white letters. Every guest could read exactly what it meant. The staff who had hesitated earlier shifted uneasily, realizing how close they'd come to violating the same code. Whitmore's phone was buzzing nonstop, calls from his assistant, his board, his investors. His empire was trembling under the weight of one live-streamed truth. Maya's fingers danced across the keyboard. "Your company holds office leases in 12 of our commercial properties. Annual value, $2.8 million. Your tech firm has partnerships with the Johnson Medical Foundation worth $15.7 million annually. Your personal investment portfolio includes $3.2 million in Johnson Holdings stock. Your company's pension fund? $47 million invested in our enterprises." Emma's whisper carried through the live stream. "He's literally invested in the company of the woman he just attacked." Whitmore's breath came fast and shallow. "You can't," he stammered. "You can't destroy my entire business over one incident." "One incident?" Maya's voice was ice. "Let me show you what this one incident really represents." She pulled out her phone and began reading contacts aloud. Senator Williams, Committee Chair for Corporate Accountability. Attorney General Morrison. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. FBI Hate Crimes Unit. Each name was a hammer blow. "You see, Mr. Whitmore," she said, "I'm not just a hotel owner. I'm also a consultant for the Federal Discrimination Task Force. This isn't just a hotel matter anymore. It's a federal case study." The display changed again, showing her government credentials. Department of Justice consultant, Federal Medical Advisory Board member, Civil Rights Task Force lead. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emma's voice trembled as she whispered into her phone, "She's connected to the FBI." Maya closed her laptop softly. The gesture carried more power than shouting ever could. "You have 3 choices, Mr. Whitmore," she said, "and I suggest you choose wisely." The room felt like it was holding its breath. Maya Johnson stood at the center of the Grand View Hotel lobby, unshaken, her bloodied cheek glowing faintly beneath the chandeliers. The crowd watched in complete silence. Every phone was recording, every lens capturing what was no longer just an incident. It was a reckoning. "You have 3 choices, Mr. Whitmore," she said, her tone precise, her eyes calm as glass. "And I suggest you choose wisely." Whitmore's mouth twitched. "Choices," he said, voice tight. "You can't." Maya raised one finger, stopping him cold. "Choice 1, she said clearly, her tone neither cruel nor forgiving. "You issue a public apology, donate $250,000 to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, complete federal sensitivity training, and submit to quarterly bias assessments for the next 3 years." She raised a second finger. "Choice 2, you are banned permanently from all Grandview properties. Every corporate contract associated with your companies is terminated immediately. And we file civil rights lawsuits against you and Whitmore Industries, seeking maximum damages under federal hate crime statutes." Then came the third finger, steady, deliberate, devastating. Choice 3, she said softly. I'll make one phone call to Senator Williams and request federal oversight of your company's hiring and promotion practices. That includes a full Department of Justice investigation into patterns of discrimination. Every deal you have, every investor you depend on, every contract you're clinging to, all of it will be audited, exposed, and judged. Her voice didn't rise once. It didn't need to. The words landed like verdicts. Whitmore's face was ashen. His phone vibrated constantly on the marble counter beside him. Calls from investors, his board, his lawyer. But he couldn't bring himself to answer. He glanced at the sea of cameras, pointed his way, and the blood on Maya's face that refused to stop reminding him what he'd done. The Meridian deal, he whispered weakly. Already canceled. Maya said matter-of-factly, tapping her phone. I called them during your little speech about where I belong. They're quite concerned about associating with companies that tolerate racial violence. She turned her laptop around. An email glowed across the screen, time-stamped and official. Meridian board votes to suspend all negotiations pending investigation of Grandview incident. The crowd stirred, whispers, low gasps, then silence again. Please, Whitmore said hoarsely, I have employees, shareholders, families depending on. You should have thought about them. Maya interrupted quietly, before you decided my face was an acceptable target for your prejudice. Marcus Johnson took a slow step forward, his presence expanding like a storm. Mr. Whitmore, he said, his voice deep and resonant, my wife is being merciful. If this were left to me, you'd already be facing federal charges. Whitmore blinked. Federal charges? Assault in a federal facility, Maya replied. This hotel hosts government conferences. That makes it a federal jurisdiction. Add to that civil rights violations, potential RICO charges if we find patterns of discrimination in your operations. You'd be lucky if it ended in fines. She tapped again, and the large lobby display filled with legal references and case precedents. Average settlement, $2.3 million. Average jail time, 18 months. Career destruction, permanent. Asterisk, asterisk. The numbers hung in the air like gravestones. Emma Rodriguez's live stream surged past 50,000 viewers. Comments flooded in so fast they blurred into a waterfall of justice. Asterisk, make him pay. Give him choice 3. Justice for Maya. Asterisk. But Maya didn't rush. She looked Whitmore directly in the eyes. I believe in rehabilitation, she said softly, not revenge. Choose option 1, Mr. Whitmore. Acknowledge what you did. Make amends. Prove that change is possible. She glanced at her watch. You have 60 seconds. Whitmore's breathing quickened. He looked around the room, but there was no escape, only witnesses. Patricia stood pale behind the counter, legal staff on their way. Marcus crossed his arms, silent but immovable. Emma's phone pointed steadily at his face. 50 people in the lobby. Tens of thousands online. His world shrinking by the second. He began. 50 seconds, Marcus said evenly. Whitmore swallowed hard. If I choose option 1, my contracts. They remain in place, Maya said, contingent on your compliance with every condition and 0 further incidents. The Meridian deal may be reconsidered after you complete your training and demonstrate genuine reform. 30 seconds, Marcus said again, glancing at his watch. I need guarantees. 20 seconds, Maya said. What about my reputation? Whitmore pleaded. You're destroying me. Maya's expression didn't change. Your reputation is already destroyed, Mr. Whitmore. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild it through action, not excuses. 10 seconds. Sweat rolled down his temples. His fingers twitched. Around him, the audience watched like a jury. Every second felt like a hammer strike. Whitmore's eyes darted from Maya's bleeding face to the broken glasses on the floor, the evidence of his arrogance, of his downfall. 5 seconds. I choose option 1, he whispered. A collective murmur rippled through the room. Emma squealed softly into her phone. He took the deal, she told her viewers. Excellent choice, Maya said calmly. Patricia, please prepare a formal incident report. Rodriguez, secure all security footage. David, contact our legal department to draft the compliance agreement. She turned back to Whitmore. You'll apologize publicly, on camera, right here, right now. And you'll begin the process of making this right. Maya gestured to Emma. Miss Rodriguez, would you mind recording Mr. Whitmore's statement for your audience? Emma's hands trembled as she raised her phone again. Yes, ma'am, she said quietly. Maya faced Whitmore. Whenever you're ready. 60,000 people are waiting to hear your apology. He looked into the camera, his career, his fortune, his reputation collapsing under the weight of his own words before they were even spoken. His voice cracked. I owe Dr. Maya Johnson a profound apology. The lobby fell still. I attacked Dr. Johnson today based on racial prejudice and ignorance. He continued, each word heavy and halting. There is no excuse for my behavior. I made assumptions about her based solely on her race and appearance. I was completely wrong. I physically assaulted her, destroyed her property, and used language that was inexcusable. His hands trembled. His voice broke. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Maya stood silently as he spoke, the tissue still pressed lightly to her cheek, blood still marking her dignity with red. I will donate $250,000 to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Whitmore went on, reading from the paper Maya's assistant had placed in front of him. I will complete federal sensitivity training and submit to quarterly bias assessments for 3 years. I will also personally fund bias prevention training for all employees at my company. He swallowed hard, glancing toward Maya. She said nothing. The words I used, the violence I showed, and the assumptions I made were the reflection of my own failure as a man and a leader, he added finally. I asked Dr. Johnson, the Grandview staff, and everyone watching to allow me the chance to learn from this and do better. The apology ended. The silence afterward was absolute. Even the hum of the lights felt reverent. Then the applause began, quiet at first, then stronger, spreading across the lobby. A few guests stood. The sound wasn't for Whitmore. It was for the woman who stood unbroken before him. Emma's live feed soared to 63,000 viewers. Major news outlets were already mirroring the stream. CNN, Fox, BBC. The footage was everywhere. When the applause faded, Maya spoke. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore, she said, her tone professional but distant. Patricia, escort Mr. Whitmore to complete his paperwork. He has 72 hours to submit proof of donation. Yes, ma'am, Patricia said softly, motioning toward the side hall. As Whitmore was led away, Maya turned to face the room, the guests, the staff, the cameras, and the countless unseen witnesses watching from their screens. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steady and resonant. What happened here today is unacceptable, but it is also an opportunity. Marcus stood beside her now, silent, proud. This incident, Maya continued, will not be buried. It will become a model for change. Effective immediately, Grandview Holdings will implement the most comprehensive anti-discrimination policy in the hospitality industry. We're calling it Maya's Protocol. A ripple of interest passed through the crowd. Emma's camera zoomed in as Maya continued, the authority in her voice radiating calm determination. The first component, Maya explained, is real-time bias reporting. Every guest and every employee will now have access to an application where discrimination incidents can be reported instantly, with photo, video, GPS data, and full anonymity if desired. She gestured to Marcus, who held up a tablet showing the app's prototype. The interface glowed on the big screen. Response time will be under 3 minutes, anywhere on our properties, she said. Every report triggers an automatic review by security, management, and our legal team simultaneously. Murmurs of approval spread through the crowd. Second, Maya continued, we're investing $5 million annually in mandatory diversity and anti-bias education. Not corporate workshops, but real training designed in partnership with the Department of Justice and leading civil rights scholars. Patricia stepped forward slightly. Mrs. Johnson, will this apply to management as well? Especially management, Maya replied firmly. Every employee, from housekeeping to executives, will complete 40 hours of certified training each year. Progress will be tracked and publicly audited. Rodriguez, still shaken, spoke next. What about enforcement, ma'am? Maya smiled faintly. Excellent question. The third component, she said, is an independent bias review board with full authority to investigate and terminate anyone, at any level, for discriminatory conduct. The display updated, showing a list of names, civil rights attorneys, former DOJ officials, community leaders, and employee representatives. This isn't about punishment, Maya added. It's about prevention. Fourth, our hotels will use advanced AI systems to analyze behavior patterns. Voice tone, aggression detection, crowd dynamics, all monitored to identify incidents before they escalate. On screen, a simulation demonstrated the technology, color-coded threat levels, automatic recording triggers, data streams feeding into a central ethics hub. Fifth, she continued, guest behavioral scoring. Repeat offenders who demonstrate discriminatory behavior will lose privileges and be permanently banned from all properties. Dignity is non-negotiable. Emma whispered into her phone. She's creating a discrimination credit score for hotel guests. The chat erupted in awe. Sixth, Maya said, employees who successfully intervene to prevent discrimination will be rewarded. Bonuses from $500 to $5,000, depending on the severity of the situation. The crowd broke into quiet applause. And seventh, she concluded, Grandview will partner with national civil rights organizations, the NAACP, the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center, to ensure our progress is transparent and accountable. Patricia's phone buzzed again. She glanced down and looked up, astonished. Mrs. Johnson, she said, Marriott and Hilton are asking to license Maya's protocol. They want meetings next week. Maya nodded. Good. This framework belongs to the world, not just to us. The applause grew louder. Maya's voice softened as she looked at the sea of faces before her. Power, she said, isn't about control. It's about creating systems that protect everyone's dignity automatically. Emma lowered her phone slightly, her voice trembling. She's changing everything, she whispered. Maya wasn't finished. She called Emma forward. Miss Rodriguez, please join me. Emma froze, startled. Me? Yes, Maya said with a warm smile. For your courage in documenting injustice, Grandview Holdings is awarding you a $10,000 scholarship and an internship in our Civil Rights Compliance Department. The crowd cheered. Emma burst into tears as Maya hugged her. The live comments exploded. Asterisk Emma got justice. Maya is a queen. This is history. Asterisk. Maya turned back to the audience, her voice resolute. Bystanders have power, she said. When you see injustice, don't look away. Don't scroll past. Record it. Report it. Stand up. You might change someone's life or an entire system. The applause filled the lobby like thunder. Reporters were already calling it the Grandview transformation. In less than 2 hours, what began as humiliation had become reform. What began as violence had become law. Maya stepped back beside her husband, her cheeks still marked by the fading blood. This, she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else, is what justice looks like. Marcus nodded, his eyes on her with a mix of pride and awe. And it's only the beginning. The Grandview Hotel lobby, once a scene of humiliation and chaos, had transformed into a theater of change. The air that had trembled with anger now carried the quiet electricity of purpose. The very marble that had witnessed a slap of hatred now reflected the light of a movement being born. Maya Johnson stood at the center of it all, calm, wounded, radiant with command. Her husband Marcus remained close by, the silent pillar beside her, while Emma Rodriguez's phone streamed, live to an audience that now numbered in the tens of thousands. The camera caught the determination in Maya's eyes, the steadiness of her voice, and the conviction that seemed to pulse through every word she spoke. Effective immediately, she announced, Grandview Holdings will implement a protocol that ensures no one, guest or employee, will ever face discrimination on our properties again. It will set the standard for the entire industry. She paused as staff and guests leaned in to listen, their eyes reflecting both reverence and disbelief. Even Patricia, the manager who had nearly lost her composure earlier, now stood straight, tablet in hand, ready to take notes. "We call it Maya's protocol," she said, "a system designed not for publicity, but for accountability." Emma adjusted her phone, whispering to her viewers, "She's changing history right now." Maya turned toward the large display screen that had once projected Whitmore's arrogance. Now, it became her blueprint for reform. "Here's how it works," she said. "There will be 7 core components, each one built to ensure dignity is not optional, but automatic." The first slide appeared behind her: real-time bias reporting. "Our new mobile application will allow anyone, guest, employee, or passerby, to report incidents of discrimination instantly," Maya explained. "With GPS location, video or photo evidence, and anonymous protection. No one will ever be silenced again." Marcus tapped his tablet, and the prototype appeared on the big screen. The interface was simple. *1 tap to report. 1 minute to respond. *. Every report, Maya continued, will trigger an immediate response. Not days later, not after review committees, but within 3 minutes. Security, management, and legal will be alerted simultaneously. The staff murmured in awe. They had never seen anything like it. Second, Maya said, advancing the slide, is education and awareness. We will invest $5 million annually in mandatory anti-bias and cultural competency training. Not surface-level workshops, real, accredited education developed in partnership with the Department of Justice and top civil rights educators. Patricia raised her hand timidly. "Will this apply to management as well, ma'am?" Maya smiled faintly. "Especially management. Every employee, from housekeeping to corporate leadership, will complete 40 hours of certified training every year, and all progress reports will be publicly audited." The next slide appeared, glowing with the words Independent Review Board. "This board will have full authority to investigate, discipline, and terminate any employee found guilty of discrimination, regardless of position," Maya said. "It will include civil rights attorneys, former Justice Department officials, community leaders, and employee representatives." Gasps rippled through the crowd. For the first time, the employees saw something unimaginable: power that flowed both ways. Rodriguez, the security chief, stepped forward. "What about people who make honest mistakes, Mrs. Johnson? Not out of hate, but out of confusion." "Education, not termination," Maya replied firmly. "Unless the behavior is intentional or malicious, we use training to correct, not destroy. This protocol is about growth, not fear." The audience nodded. Her tone carried both firmness and compassion, the perfect balance between justice and humanity. The fourth slide filled the screen: AI-assisted monitoring. Marcus took over for a moment, his voice calm, technical, reassuring. "We're integrating artificial intelligence across all our security systems. It will analyze voice stress, posture, aggression levels, and crowd patterns to detect escalating confrontations before they turn into incidents." A video demonstration played. A simulation of the lobby appeared on screen, showing how AI sensors could recognize tension in body language, detect raised voices, and automatically flag interactions that crossed behavioral thresholds. It wasn't surveillance, it was protection. "No act of bias," Marcus said, "will go unnoticed again." Applause spread through the crowd, cautious at first, then sincere. Fifth, Maya continued, "We're introducing guest behavioral scoring. Every guest interaction will be tracked through our system. Discriminatory behavior will result in permanent bans across all Grandview properties." The slide revealed a colorful dashboard with clear metrics, previous incidents, complaint patterns, and verified reports. "If guests choose hate, they lose access," Maya said simply. "Our hospitality is not a license for cruelty." Emma whispered into her phone, "She's building a moral credit score for guests. This is revolutionary." The next slide appeared: incentives for prevention. Employees who intervene to stop discrimination will receive bonuses, from $500 to $5,000 depending on the situation, Maya announced. Departments with zero bias reports will receive additional funding for staff development and wellness programs. We reward dignity, not silence. Cheers broke out. For the first time, the staff didn't feel like bystanders in someone else's morality. They were protectors of justice, and they would be rewarded for it. Sixth, Maya said, we will work directly with civil rights organizations to ensure our policies are not just symbolic. The NAACP, the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and local advocacy groups will oversee quarterly evaluations of our results. No more self-grading. She let the words hang, letting them sink in. Accountability was the heart of it all. And finally, Marcus added, stepping beside her again, we're working with Senator Williams to propose federal legislation modeled after Maya's protocol, so that every hotel, restaurant, and service establishment in this country can implement these same standards. A collective murmur of amazement filled the space. Even the guests who had been silent bystanders earlier were nodding now, moved by the clarity of the vision unfolding before them. This incident, Maya said, reminded me why we started the Johnson Foundation in the first place. Education changes hearts, but accountability changes behavior. She turned to Emma's phone, looking straight into the live stream lens. To everyone watching, she said, this is how we respond to hate. Not with violence, not with revenge, but with systematic change that protects everyone who comes after us. Applause began slowly, then built into a standing ovation. Even the security guards, the same ones who had once hesitated, clapped, eyes bright with emotion. This protocol begins today, Marcus announced. Our bias reporting app launches in 30 days across all 47 properties. Employee training starts immediately, and every single location will complete transition within 6 months. Patricia stepped forward again, her professional voice tinged with awe. Mrs. Johnson, she said, corporate legal just approved the framework. They're recommending we share it with our competitors. Excellent, Maya replied without hesitation. We're not looking for a competitive advantage. We're looking for industry transformation. The crowd erupted again in applause. It was no longer about one hotel. It was about rewriting the rules of respect across an entire industry. Additionally, Marcus continued, holding up a financial projection on the screen. Our analysts estimate that implementing this system will reduce legal costs, improve staff retention, and strengthen customer loyalty. Early models predict up to a $47 million increase in annual revenue due to improved trust and reputation. Patricia glanced down at her tablet and smiled. Guest satisfaction has already jumped 23% in the last hour, she reported. Social media sentiment toward Grandview is overwhelmingly positive. Maya nodded. Good. Let's prove that justice and profit aren't opposites. They're partners. Emma's live stream, still ongoing, had crossed 78,000 viewers. The comments filled with praise, testimony, and reflection. Asterisk, she's fixing the system. This is real leadership. I've never seen anything like this before. Asterisk. But Maya wasn't finished yet. There's one more thing, she said. This incident was captured because one young woman refused to stay silent. She turned toward Emma, smiling. Miss Rodriguez, please come here. Emma froze. The crowd turned as she approached, phone still in hand, her heart pounding. Maya placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Because of your courage, Maya said, we're awarding you a $10,000 scholarship and offering you an internship with our Civil Rights Compliance Division. Emma's eyes filled with tears. The applause thundered. Her viewers erupted in celebration. Asterisk Emma got the scholarship. Justice wins. Asterisk. Courage, Maya said softly, is contagious. You stood up when others froze. And that made all the difference. Emma nodded, speechless, as Maya continued addressing the audience. To everyone watching online, remember this moment. It began with one act of cruelty, but it ends with collective accountability. Every one of us has a role in the systems we inhabit, and every one of us has the power to make them better. Rodriguez, still looking guilty, raised his hand. Mrs. Johnson, he said hesitantly, what about people like me? Those who almost made the wrong call. Maya smiled kindly. You learn. You grow. You do better next time. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. You recognize something was wrong, even before you understood why. That's where justice begins. James, the guard who had first recognized her name, stepped forward too. Ma'am, I should have acted faster. I knew your name. I just wasn't sure. Maya nodded. And now you are. Next time, trust your instincts, and trust that this system will protect you for doing the right thing. Marcus added, that's another part of the reform, staff empowerment protocols. Every employee now has the authority to ban discriminatory guests immediately, no management approval required. And they'll be fully protected from retaliation. On the big screen, the new policy flashed. Immediate authority to act, legal protection guaranteed. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the shift in the air, the relief, the unity, the sense that something extraordinary was happening. This isn't just policy, she said quietly. It's culture. It's the future we're building together. Patricia checked her phone again, astonished. Mrs. Johnson, she said, Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt are on the line. They want to license Maya's protocol across their properties. Schedule meetings, Maya said. This framework belongs to everyone. The lobby had turned from a place of shame into a classroom for social justice. Guests were taking notes. Staff were asking questions. Cameras rolled as the transformation unfolded in real time. Maya gestured for one final slide, the Dignity Awards. Starting this year, she said, we will honor businesses that eliminate bias through systemic change, not with press releases or slogans, but measurable results. The Dignity Awards will recognize organizations that prove equality and profitability can coexist. The slide showed proposed metrics, reduced discrimination reports, improved employee satisfaction, measurable diversity growth, verified external audits. It wasn't just an idea. It was a standard. She let her gaze travel across the room, from the staff who had once doubted her place, to the guests who had filmed her humiliation, to her husband standing proudly beside her. What happened here today, she said, began with violence, but it ends with vision. Power isn't about control, it's about responsibility. It's about building systems that protect everyone's dignity without needing someone powerful in the room. Her words echoed across the marble hall. For a moment, everyone stood in silence, aware that they were part of something far larger than a single event. Then the applause erupted again, louder, fuller, unstoppable. Reporters rushed to send updates. News anchors spoke live from outside the Grand View. Hashtag spread like wildfire. Hashtag Maya's protocol. Hashtag dignity is power. Hashtag Grandview justice. Emma's camera trembled slightly as she whispered through tears, we just watched history being made. Marcus turned to his wife, his voice low and proud. You turned their cruelty into a blueprint for change. Maya looked up at the gleaming chandeliers, the same lights that had reflected her blood just an hour before. No, she said softly. We turned it into one. Together. The crowd began chanting softly, voices joining from staff and guests alike. Dignity. Justice. Change. Maya smiled, her face calm, but eyes shining with purpose. Remember this day, she said to them all. The day we prove that justice doesn't just belong in courtrooms. It belongs in boardrooms, in hotel lobbies, and in every place where humanity meets power. The applause thundered again as the lobby lights brightened, illuminating the faces of those who had witnessed transformation with their own eyes. And in that moment, under the marble archways of Grandview, Maya's protocol was no longer just policy. It was prophecy. 6 months later, the woman once struck down in a hotel lobby stood beneath the blue and gold seal of the United Nations. Dr. Maya Johnson, chairwoman of Grandview Holdings, federal consultant, reformer, survivor, faced the world's assembled nations with the same quiet authority that had once silenced a room full of prejudice. Before her sat delegates from 193 countries. Behind her glowed a vast digital display. Statistics, images, lives transformed. The crowd leaned forward as she began. Today, Maya said, her voice carrying through the vast chamber, I speak not as a victim, but as proof that dignity is not negotiable and systematic change is possible. The screen behind her flickered to life, displaying the astonishing results of Maya's protocol. Across all 47 Grandview properties, there had been 0 recorded discrimination incidents since its launch. Guest satisfaction had increased by 34%. Staff retention had risen by 52%. And annual revenue, once threatened by scandal, had climbed by $73 million. But the numbers were only the beginning. In the audience, seated in the front row, Emma Rodriguez, now a sophomore at Harvard University, watched with tears in her eyes. The same young woman who had filmed the original incident now ran a global social justice platform called Emma for Justice, with over 2 million followers. She was live streaming again, this time from the front lines of progress. Maya continued, her words flowing like a lesson carved into time. 6 months ago, a man named Richard Whitmore believed he could determine my worth based on the color of my skin, she said. Today, his actions have sparked a movement that spans continents. A single act of cruelty became a catalyst for global accountability. The transformation was undeniable. In Chicago, where the Grandview tragedy had unfolded, Whitmore was completing his 200th hour of community service at a Southside community center. The same man who had once spat slurs and arrogance now spent his days serving food, repairing homes, and listening to the very people he had once dismissed. A local news crew interviewed him one afternoon as he helped unload boxes of groceries. His voice was humbled but steady. "Dr. Johnson saved my life," he said. "She could have destroyed me, but instead she chose to reform me." His company, which had teetered on the brink of collapse after the viral scandal, now operated under the strictest diversity and equity mandates in the industry. Whitmore Industries' quarterly reports showed record productivity and employee satisfaction. For the first time in its history, women and minorities held senior executive positions. Even his investors admitted, quietly, almost reverently, that being held accountable had saved them from their own moral blindness. At the same time, Maya's protocol was spreading far beyond the Grandview brand. What had started as an emergency policy in a single lobby had become the gold standard for global anti-discrimination reform. Hotels, airlines, tech firms, and even government agencies were licensing the system. Airports adopted the AI monitoring framework to detect bias in security interactions. Restaurants introduced the real-time reporting app to protect staff from harassment. Retail chains used the behavioral tracking system to ban repeat offenders and train managers to de-escalate bias incidents before they exploded. By the end of the first year, 347 hotels worldwide were operating under Maya's protocol. It had prevented more than 2,800 documented incidents of discrimination, saving companies an estimated $47 million in legal costs and public relations crises. The data spoke with the clarity of truth. Where systems of accountability were implemented, justice flourished naturally. Soon, the ripple reached Washington. Senator Williams, who had watched the original Grandview video from the Senate floor, introduced sweeping legislation inspired by Maya's work. It passed unanimously, a rarity in modern politics. The Maya Johnson Civil Rights and Commerce Act became law. Every business that served the public, from hotels to hospitals, airlines to restaurants, was now required to maintain measurable anti-discrimination systems modeled after Maya's protocol. The act included funding for national training programs, real-time incident reporting infrastructure, and federal oversight to ensure compliance. When President Grant signed it into law, he said, "Dr. Maya Johnson reminded us that equality cannot depend on personality. It must depend on policy." But Maya herself wasn't celebrating from behind corporate walls. She was in the field, visiting schools, speaking to employees, and consulting for organizations ready to change. She refused to be a figurehead. She was an architect of transformation, brick by brick. At the UN podium, she continued her speech, eyes glinting with conviction. Systemic change requires courage, consistency, and consequence, she said. We cannot correct bias with apologies. We correct it with structure. Behind her, images scrolled. Staff members smiling during training sessions, diverse management teams signing equity pledges, and security guards like James and Rodriguez leading workshops on intervention with integrity. The transformation had even reached unexpected corners. Patricia Carter, the manager who had hesitated that day in the lobby, was now regional vice president of guest experience, overseeing bias prevention programs across the western United States. She led with empathy, using her own failure as a training case in every seminar. "I froze that day because I was afraid," she told new managers during orientation. "Now, I teach others how to move through fear into action." Rodriguez and James, the security officers who had once stood uncertainly before Maya, have become pioneers in the company's civil rights security certification program. They now traveled internationally, training other hotels on how to recognize prejudice and respond with professionalism and humanity. In a televised interview, James said quietly, "Before Mrs. Johnson, I thought being silent was being neutral. Now I know silence sides with the oppressor." Their transformation became part of the larger story, that institutions could heal just as individuals could. The numbers were staggering. Maya's protocol reduced bias-related complaints industry-wide by 89% in its first year. Companies reported lower turnover, higher morale, and stronger public trust. And as the policy grew, so did the technology behind it. The bias reporting app evolved into a full digital ecosystem. Users could report incidents, upload evidence, access legal and emotional support, and connect with civil rights attorneys for free consultations. Real-time dashboards allowed organizations to monitor progress transparently, with every report leading to documented resolutions. The AI system had been refined too. It can now detect not just aggression or physical threats, but subtle microaggressions, tone, body language, interrupt patterns, allowing managers to intervene long before harm was done. Maya described it best in one of her global addresses: "Technology doesn't replace morality, but it can help enforce it. When we code dignity into our systems, we create automatic protection for humanity." The success extended far beyond business. Universities began teaching the Grandview case study as a model of crisis leadership, ethics, and stakeholder capitalism. Harvard, Stanford, Wharton all introduced coursework based on Maya's methods. Over 15,000 managers completed the Johnson Foundation's bias prevention certification within the first year, boasting a 99% completion rate and 94% satisfaction. Maya's story even reshaped medical education. Her research on implicit bias in healthcare, once an overlooked subject, became a required curriculum in dozens of medical schools. Early data showed measurable reductions in diagnostic disparities for minority patients. Meanwhile, the Johnson Foundation had become one of the largest philanthropic institutions in the world. With a $500 million endowment, it funded bias prevention research, supported victims of discrimination, and developed new technologies for equitable treatment in every industry imaginable. Marcus and Maya pledged 80% of their personal wealth to the foundation. "Money is temporary," Marcus said during a televised interview. "Justice is eternal." By the time Maya finished her speech at the UN, delegates from 50 nations had already requested consultations to adopt the Grandview model in their own institutions. Her name, once spoken in pity, now symbolized accountability and grace in the same breath. But Maya never let the spotlight eclipse her purpose. She returned to the people, visiting community centers, small businesses, and schools. In one memorable address to high school students, she told them, "Justice is a practice, not a possession. It's something you do every day, especially when no one's watching." The global media began calling it the Maya moment, a phrase that described not just one woman's triumph, but a shift in global consciousness. Across the world, people began reclaiming the words that had once been used to demean them. Hashtags flooded social media. Hashtag know your place. Hashtag dignity is non-negotiable. Hashtag systemic change now. What had begun as Whitmore's insult, know your place, had been transformed into a rallying cry of empowerment. Protesters from Seoul to Sao Paulo carried signs reading, "My place is wherever dignity needs defending." Universities reported record enrollments in civil rights law, social justice, and ethics programs. A new generation of students, inspired by Maya's story, were choosing careers rooted in compassion and accountability. And still, Maya kept teaching. In one of her most watched interviews, streamed live to over 4 million viewers, Emma Rodriguez asked her mentor, Dr. Johnson, after everything that's happened, the humiliation, the fight, the victory, what does power mean to you now? Maya smiled softly. "I learned that day," she said, "that power isn't about controlling others. It's about creating systems where everyone's dignity is protected automatically." Emma nodded through tears. "And what would you say to people watching who feel powerless?" Maya leaned forward, her eyes steady. "When someone tries to put you in a box," she said, "you don't have to stay there. But more importantly, you can make sure that box never traps anyone else." Her words went viral again, but this time, not because of outrage, because of hope. At the close of that interview, Maya looked directly into the camera and issued her final call to action. "I need each of you to do 3 things," she said. First, share your story. Tell the world about a time you witnessed or experienced discrimination. Your voice matters. Your story can inspire someone else to act. Second, be an active bystander. Learn how to intervene safely. Download the reporting tools. When you see injustice, don't scroll past. Stand up, document, report, and speak. And third, support systematic change. Vote for leaders who prioritize civil rights. Support businesses that build equity into their operations. Demand more than apologies. Demand accountability. She paused, her gaze heavy with the wisdom of someone who had walked through humiliation and turned it into transformation. 6 months ago, Richard Whitmore told me to know my place, she said. Today I do. My place is wherever dignity needs defending, wherever systems need changing, wherever people need hope. Her voice softened. This story was never about revenge. It was about prevention. When we change systems, we change lives. When we change lives, we change the world. She smiled then, that same serene, fearless smile that had silenced a lobby full of arrogance. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for joining this movement. Together, we can build a world where no one ever has to endure what I experienced that day. She looked up as applause thundered through the UN hall, a sound not of pity, but of reverence. At that moment, Emma's live stream hit 4.7 million viewers. Across the world, in homes and offices, people paused to listen. Some wiped tears, some clenched fists. Many simply nodded, feeling, for the first time, that justice might actually be possible. When Maya stepped away from the podium, Marcus met her at the base of the stage. "You've done it," he said quietly. She shook her head, her voice almost a whisper. "No, we've only begun." Together, they walked out of the hall, not as heroes, but as builders of something far greater. Behind them, the screen displayed one final message, now etched into history. Power isn't about control. It's about protection. And dignity isn't requested, it's required. Outside the UN headquarters, hundreds of young activists were waiting with signs that read, "Speak truth. Share hope. Know your place. Everywhere dignity lives." As Maya stepped into the sunlight, she smiled. The world had finally caught up to the truth she had known all along. That one act of injustice could birth a lifetime of reform, and that the quiet strength of one woman could ignite a global movement. The cameras followed as she and Marcus disappeared into the crowd, not above it, but among it, walking hand in hand toward a future they had helped rewrite. And though the applause faded, her words remained, carried by millions who now understood. Justice isn't a moment. It's a movement. And dignity, once defended, can never again be taken away.